If you like what I do, consider supporting me on Ko-fi or Patreon. Links in the description. What do you think that means?
There's someone your choice, okay? Okay. All right, go ahead and take a deep breath in for me. Oh!
A quick disclaimer for this video. I guarantee I'm going to call this game Mars 2021 instead of Mars 2120 because I grew up with C-Lab 2021 and still quote that stupid show to this day. So if it happens, I apologize. Instead of getting upset, turn it into a drinking game and take a shot every time I f up. Just don't hurt yourself and watch who you drunkenly go to bed with. I don't want any of you regretting anything in the morning.
Do you want the mustache on or off?
Off, please.
Too bad.
Mars 2120 is the Brazilian Metroid Dread. At least, that's what it's been nicknamed, apparently. Probably because it's a Metroidvania with a sci-fi setting, and you're a space lady fighting space things in space. And I assume this space lady has a Brazil. What? The developers are from Brazil? Does that mean they have Brazil? So, what do you actually do in Mars 2120? You play as redheaded space lady Anna, who receives a distress signal from a Mars colony and is told by her superiors,
Now this is the plan. Get your ass to Mars.
Anna gets her ass to Mars, but of course she crash lands because women and driving. Am I right, boys? Calm down, my wife wrote that joke. Things can't possibly get any worse for our heroine at this point, right? Okay, so that happened, but it's gotta be smooth sailing from here, right? Right? That's pretty much all the setup you're gonna get, which is fine. Space Lady getting f***ed over in space is as good a trope as any at this point. But does it set itself up to be a good Metroidvania?
Combat.
Mars 2120's combat is something. It's a twin-stick shooter with 360-degree aiming and a lot of melee options to unlock. Melee's pretty sparse in the beginning, and I wouldn't recommend it out the gate. You'll eventually come up against these T-800 looking enemies that'll body you if you get close. Anna's melee requires her to completely stop moving as she flails about. But these robots, they literally fly across the room with their attack, putting you at a distinct disadvantage. Then why not shoot them, you ask? Because they have these stupid shields that block everything. Lightning rifles, ice shotguns, flamethrowers. There's nothing you could do to penetrate these shields. Best you could do is roll behind them and give them the old 1-2. But that knocks them away, forcing you to chase them down and repeat the cycle. And that's only if the game registers the hit. Mars 2120 is full of that 2.5D hitbox jank. If you're too close, your gun pokes right through enemies and you miss. This is very unfortunate for players like me who've been conditioned since a very young age to shotgun everything evil in Mars. Yeah, I really didn't dig the combat in this game. I felt the animations were a little too stiff, but mostly I just found the enemies too obnoxious. The shield Terminators were my least favorite to fight, but second place definitely goes to the flying bug enemies. They like to stay just out of melee and shotgun reach and pelt you with acid. And right when you think you can shoot them with a lightning rifle, they'll charge and hit you, typically doing some kind of status effect like freezing you in place or shocking you in place. Basically, making it so you can't move. It's very fun. Now, admittedly, me not enjoying the combat could easily be explained away as a skill issue, which is actually a very clever play on words you'd only understand if you've played the game. What I mean is my biggest misstep is I'd constantly forget all the skills I had at my disposal. For such a short experience, between 6 to 8 hours I think, which I think is a solid MV length, Anna gets so many skills. You seriously get skills at a rate of 2 skills per hour. I'm not gonna go over every skill as it'd significantly add to this video's runtime, but I'm not exaggerating when I say there are a lot. I'll dive a little deeper into them in the next section. All you need to know for general combat is that Anna gets 3 elemental cores: lightning, fire, and ice. And each of these cores gets like 700 moves. Okay, I'm kind of exaggerating a little there. To be efficient in combat and traversal, Anna will need to cycle through these cores, which can be done with the bumpers. In combat, enemies will have elemental resistances and weaknesses, given away by their colors. This was probably my favorite aspect of combat because it kept me engaged. It's largely a bad idea to just run around with only one weapon, and that's another thing I liked. Each core was a different weapon, not just an elemental change. The lightning core is a rifle, the ice core is a shotgun, and the flame core is a flamethrower. A nice, murderous variety, if I say so myself. The bosses were I'll be honest with you, I thought they were pretty bad. None were particularly challenging, and some were legit boring. The fire giant had me actually yawning. I hate bosses that require you to wait for your chance to attack, so you're just sitting there with your thumb up your ass, waiting for them to randomly use whatever move you can capitalize on. Anyone play Hyrule Warriors? That game was notorious for that bullshit. You could probably parry one of the fire giant's attacks, but those were also random, and I was not about to parry in this game. Are you kidding me? The green giant was pretty cool. He wasn't hard, but he was interesting. And the purple bird thing was a really cool spectacle that gave me Shadow of the Colossus vibes. But again, it was pretty easy. I don't know. Maybe you'll like the bosses, but for me, they were kind of bland. And that'll do it for general combat, though I'll be going a little more in depth with combat in the next section because abilities and combat are intertwined so closely in this game. But to summarize, combat feels a little off in Mars 2120, mainly due to stiff animations, janky hitboxes, annoying enemies, and the sheer amount of skills that I just kept forgetting I had. Add on the pushover bosses, and you got yourself a game with combat that's tough to get excited for.
Abilities. Platforming.
Alright, let's get into these abilities. Before we dive into the cores, note that Anna starts with a roll and a double jump. She also gets this weird air dive that got me killed on numerous occasions. There's nothing wrong with it, I just wasn't used to a dive when typically you'd do an air dash. Anyway, as stated earlier, Anna gets elemental cores, and each core has a ton of moves, both for combat and for traversal. For time's sake, let's only focus on the fire core. Switching to the fire core equips Anna with a flamethrower and gives her all the abilities associated with that core. These abilities include setting herself on fire so she can do more damage, being able to blow up red barrels to open paths, open doors that are on fire, because adding more fire to a fiery door makes sense, a fire bomb that attracts heat-seeking missiles, a slide move, and fiery punches and kicks that propel her through fire vortices, as well as double as attacks. And that's just a third of her total abilities. It's insane all the stuff Anna can do by the end of the game. If I break it down, each core has its own combat style and basically acts as a key for certain doors and barriers. But there are some unique abilities in the bunch, like the ice grenades that create platforms on water, and the lightning burst that lifts suitcases up so you can reach higher ground. I mentioned it earlier, but the only issue with so many abilities is you might forget you have a necessary skill you need in order to move forward. It's rare as most things are pretty simple to figure out, like, oh geez, I wonder if I have a fire move to get me through this fire door. But I forgot all about the ice pillar ability that creates something for me to jump on. Just saying, not everything is idiot proof. As for platforming, it's not my favorite. This game's focus is more around combat and exploration than platforming, and platforming is mediocre at best and frustrating at worst. There are a few chase sequences and set pieces to test your platforming skills, but they're not very tricky. Mostly when it comes to platforming, you're going to be struggling against instant death pits or flying enemies hitting you midair and sending you tumbling to your death. And there are no puzzles. The game likes to keep things simple, with most puzzles relegated to finding something to interact with so you can move forward, like finding a console that unlocks a door or lifts a bridge or whatever. And that'll do it for this section. There are a ton of abilities to play around with that enhance both combat and traversal, so much so that you might forget you have a few of them. And the platforming is just kind of there, nothing particularly worth writing home about.
Progression.
Progression has got to be the oddest aspect of Mars 2120. This game is a Metroid-like through and through, but it tries to dabble in the Vania side of things by having this awkward XP system that just doesn't work. Basically, Anna has all these skills, but she can't do anything with them until she finds them during exploration. Okay, I can dig that, but when you find them, you have to go to a save station to activate them. Alright, a little strange, but not bad. And to activate them, you have to use XP, of which you will have an extreme excess of. Okay, now you lost me. I guess what I'm saying is, what's the point of the XP system? Every time I find a skill to quote-unquote purchase, I'll easily unlock it because I have 30,000 more XP than necessary to unlock it. It's not a terrible issue by any means, but it just seems silly. Just unlock and equip the skill as soon as I find it. The XP system is just superfluous. A fix might to give XP a secondary function, such as currency for in-game shops or to increase individual stat points. But this game has neither of those. There are no items, no gear, no leveling, or stats. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with not having those things. There are plenty of great Metroidvanias that lack these aspects, and that's typically what makes them Metroid-likes instead of full-blown Metroidvanias. I'm just saying, if you're going to make an XP system that's designed to give players a ludicrous surplus of XP, I'd recommend giving players a way to use that surplus. I'm not a developer, so I know that's easier said than done, but it's something to consider in future projects. And that's really it for progression. The skill system is actually quite good. I loved finding new skills during exploration, and each skill felt impactful. The only issue is that the XP system around these skills was gratuitous, but it's hardly anything to get upset about, honestly.
Exploration.
Exploration is essential for a Metroidvania to be successful, and thankfully, Mars 2120 does very well in this category. The explanation is simple. Mars 2120 does not give a f*** if you get lost. Of course, this is a good thing. Mars places a lot of faith in its players and respects their intelligence, giving them the tools they need to succeed and allowing players to find their own way. I guess I should explain the tram stations. They're this game's waypoint fast travel system. You find a biome station and reactivate it to add its node to your fast travel points. I actually liked this a lot. Unlocking the nodes was a great visualization of your progress. And I meant it when I said Mars doesn't give a f*** if you get lost. There were many times I didn't know where to go next, but I didn't find it frustrating because all I had to do was go from biome to biome and search for areas that can be unlocked with whatever new skill I just obtained. What the map does right is that it automatically labels all points of interest for you, though I can see how this could bug some MV players. That's why I said I was able to scan the map for areas my newest ability could unlock. They even color code everything for you. You get a new ice move? Look for blue locks. Maybe Mars does give a f*** about you after all. Exploration is decently rewarding. I rolled my eyes whenever I stumbled upon a yellow XP orb, but finding skills and audio logs was always a thrill. I thought the biomes were okay. I thought they all looked rather samey, but what do you expect with a 2.5D game set in a space station? There's pretty good variety though, but it's still your basic platformer tropes. Cold area, hot area, plant area, dark cave area, and there's really nothing here to intrigue or fascinate. Though they did attempt with audio logs and environmental storytelling that mostly equated to dead bodies strewn about. If I had to tell you my favorite part, I'd say it was the dark cave with the bug monster stalking you. That was a genuinely tense and fun area. That's it for this section. Exploration's decently rewarding with a strange combination of laissez-faire nonlinearity and hand-holding via the endgame map. You'll get lost in Mars's world, but not so much that you'll get frustrated.
Atmosphere. Narrative.
So, I don't really know what to say in this section. I can probably just say this. Imagine a space colony on Mars. Now, imagine you visit that space colony after something bad happened to it. Whatever imagery, environments, backgrounds, and scenarios you just conjured inside your head, that's Mars 2120. It is exactly everything you just thought up. Visually and atmospherically, Mars 2120 is as generic as it gets. The only thing that could save the game from drowning in mediocrity would be its narrative, and, I hate to say it, that lifeboat's got some holes in it. There's nothing wrong with its narrative, it's just as generic as its atmosphere is all. Now, full disclosure, the game's story is delivered entirely through audio logs you have to find, and I didn't find all of them, but I think I got the gist. The colony got infected with a space virus, or a doctor was experimenting and created the virus. Then monsters happened. And also AI? Okay, maybe I didn't get the gist, and maybe that's why the final boss felt like it came out of nowhere. Regardless, I was uninvested, and that's the exact opposite of what you want your audience to be. But the cutscenes were pretty good. They really made Anna look like a badass.
Final thoughts and score.
Let me close out by giving you another person's thoughts directly from Mars 2120's Steam page. From Megascopio.
In simple terms, Mars is the Brazilian Super Metroid, capable of reproducing the qualities of the Nintendo franchise very well, especially in its aesthetics and setting, which complement each other optimally, building the idea or mystery that leads players to continue exploring to understand what is happening. This atmosphere or mystery, in fact, is reminiscent of Metroid Dread.
I understand art is transactional, so I'm not going to say Megascopio is wrong or a liar liar pants on fire, but I can at least say I disagree. Nothing of what I played in Mars 2120 comes remotely close to the excellence of Metroid Dread. And this is coming from someone whose viewers have called a Dread hater. As for my final thoughts, they sound a little something like this. Despite its promising Metroidvania roots and inspirations, Mars 2120 struggles to stand out with its stiff combat, lackluster bosses, and generic atmosphere. While its exploration shines with its non-linearity and the sheer variety of skills keeps things interesting, Mars 2120 just doesn't manage to break new ground. But hey, if you're into space adventures with loads of abilities to juggle and can overlook some wonky elements, it's worth a shot, because it's by no means a terrible video game. I award Mars 2120 a 6 out of 10.
Tier placement.
Mars 2120 is a good game. It's not a bad game. It's not a great game. It's a good game. An average Metroidvania experience with slightly above average nonlinearity, placing it right smack in the middle of the C tier. Metroidvania veterans should give it a shot if they're looking for a quick MV fix. As for MV noobs, you might want to knock out some more established MVs in your priority list before you
Get your ass to Mars.
Do you want the mustache on or off? Too bad.